costs on the service.
So we are living in a knowledge economy, right, where
Yeah.
data plays a lot of role in our lives.
Right.
We're using data in all forms. What is the future like? Are we going to be guided by data in the future? Like, are we like going to be more possessed by data?
Yeah, I think that's a very interesting question, and in fact, we were discussing it when we were coming from Delhi to Chandigarh. That what is happening is that there are things like Internet of Things coming, which would make it possible to uniquely identify every moving object on Earth, and possibly the universe. There are so much IPs you can generate. So you can put an RFID chip on everything and track its movement. What will happen in that scenario is that you would start generating so much data that human beings will not be able to process it. So right now what is happening is that we are doing machine learning. This is typically generate programs which can do some automated analysis. Then we would move to machine learning. Machines will capture data and machines will analyze it. So that's where we are moving. IoT, I think Internet of Things will be very real in about 4 or 5 years. Even in India, I think there are startups which are working in that domain. And then I think we are going to machine learning where there would be very little human interface. Okay, I think.
Generally, you are talking about multinational companies, about data. But what about the medium level or medium level industries, the small scale industries, from where they can collect the data and know about the product details?
So ideally, if you look at the analysis at ITC, they had a problem, and they had a problem in their product, and they wanted to know whether they can eliminate this defect or at least identify where this defect is happening. I think this kind of problem is common in most of the small industries also. Either there is a defect occurring or they want to improve their product, or maybe they just want to do some research about what maybe more reagents they can add to the product to make it more robust. The data, how it can be collected, really depends on the kind of problem. If I know that the strength of my product is weak, then again I can divide my processes into small segments and identify where what is happening. So data collection really depends by the scope of the problem that you have. Once you have set the scope that this is what I want to identify, you can then think of with obviously with brainstorming with the people who really know the industry. Then you can think of what data you can collect. So people like me really don't know much about the domain expertise. We know how to handle data and process it. We work with the people who know the industry, have the necessary expertise. They would explain the processes, and we will learn the science. And these two have to generally combine. Which data to collect normally comes from the domain expertise. People who know which products are being made, how is it's being made. And this diagram actually helps, the fishbowl diagram. It helps you find out the root causes and what data you might need to collect.
What you have collected the data, ITs or anything, you put any domain or it is only for that company also, particularly?
Normally, the problems are very company specific. So, if I'm solving a problem for your industry, it might be very specific to your use case and might not be useful in other situation.
If just like you have given the example of ITs, similar companies they are worldwide around 50 to 100 or might be that. If the problem is occurring in your factory, similar problem might be there in some other unit also. If data is collected on the website or some department is there, then those factories can also collect this data.
Ideally, what happens is that I'm not sure I get the question completely, but what happens is that if there are some industries who solve a particular kind of problem, like peel-off problem, they would solve and they would release a white paper, which will put some high-level steps which others can use at their end. But in case of paper machines, the product itself depends on the machine that you purchased. Maybe ITC purchased that machine from China, from a particular manufacturer, and some other people who are making the same grade of paper. but purchase some other machine from some other manufacturer. The process controls in that machines can be different. The parameters that I will control on this machine could be very different from the parameters I control in that machine. So in the end, what happens is that the kind of data that you will collect and analysis that you will use will depend on the exact setup of the industry also. But certainly high level steps can be put down that anyone can use.
Most of the surveys they take, every company has two strategies. One is defending and one is attacking. Attacking is like all the customers are happy but they want to go ahead. And I've seen that most of the surveys they happen in defending the customers, if are the customers happy or not, what the complaints they are getting. Is it that only defending strategy is used for the surveys and innovation or the other factors are not considered in the surveys?
I'm not really a business expert, so I'm not sure, but mostly what I've seen is that people take the reviews of the customers as it is. They consider the feedback of their customers as the only thing that really decides where they are going. If I start to put my prejudice, for example, let's say this is the chart that you see is really what customers really talked about HP products. These were the topics that mattered to them. Now if I put that my bias is that my computer screen I have invested so heavily in it, people have to like it and they are not at all talking about it. Then you cannot enforce your personal bias and say that this is how the reviews should be, because you cannot grow business like that. You have to take the real feedback from people. Maybe they are not talking about it because they like it and it never had problems, right? So you have to take what is wrong, definitely. Hi.
Actually, I didn't take the whole presentation because I was late, but I still got an idea because I am into IT sector. I have done IT engineering, but right now I am working as a technical writer. And I also used to rely on reviews and like wherever I had to go or whatever I had to do, I just relied on the reviews. But nowadays, I am getting the projects and I am allotting it to my people for increasing the values, like the feedback values. And we are being paid by US and UK companies to give reviews for the products which we have never used and we can never use, like snorkeling products or something like scuba diving. That's just an example. Or some laptops which are not available here. So I really used to rely on these reviews when I was not doing this kind of project. But now I'm allotting the same work to people who are giving an idea, and 3.6 was the review. I still remember, I don't remember the product, but 3.6 was the review for one product, and I had to make sure that different IP addresses were used by approximately 10 people to give 4.8, 4.95 or 4.6. And I used to tell that 4.6 person, you have to explain that there is one single fault in that because of which I am giving 4.6. So technically speaking, I do agree that reviews play a big part, but fake reviews are so much available and I do it. I personally do it because I'm getting paid for it, usually good payment, like $5 for one review, and it just takes two to 3 minutes, and I just have to see 2-3 reviews and I just write, yeah, blah blah blah, it was like that, it was like, yeah, even on TripAdvisor. Like just an example, we go to hotels and just we go to hotels. I have never been to Italy, I have never been to Paris, but I write the reviews of different hotels by looking at their pictures, and I do the things like, I do it, yes, I do it, and I'm telling it, some people, I don't remember the name of the hotel, but I wrote day before yesterday. And it was a $10 payment from the client to me to write a 300 words review, a very nice review I wrote. I never went there, but I personally wrote that, yeah, this kind of problem was there, just one minor problem, and all the good things, yeah, the service was too good, this thing was too good. So what personally my opinion is, like, somehow a few days later or a few months later, everybody is going to realize that yes, there are people like me who write reviews for the things which they have never used or for which they have never visited the places or something like that. So,
I think your question is very important, so I will give you one instance that when this analysis was being done at HP, so they definitely have their marketing teams who would do all these kinds of things, right? So when we were doing this survey analysis, we were not using data of e-commerce websites. We were using data of HP.com, where they have an authentication process that the customer who is reviewing it has bought it. So the part that you are telling is actually business strategy, that you want to create enough hype about your people. One of the instruments is fake reviews. But when TripAdvisor would itself want to evaluate its business, it will not use the same reviews. It will look for some other data sources.
But I will tell you that I am a member, I am a trusted member, and they make you the trusted members. The people who allot us the work, they have their transaction IDs, they provide us everything like customer IDs, or because 6 out of 10 people are not going to give reviews. Right? They get those customer numbers or whatever, they get it from them, like they get the data from the hotels itself that these people have not reviewed, and on their names we write. We don't write on our names at times, we write on their names. So a kind of thing is like whenever I look at buying anything now or going to anywhere now, so I just keep in mind that there would be somebody like me who is doing the same thing. That is a kind of thing which is going to be really changed. Yes, your concept is 100% right that if a person is purchasing something from HP, they need to mention the reviews given by anybody. They need to mention that this was my invoice number, this was my product which I purchased, that was the date, and then the review would be considered. That is the right one. You told about this, and this is right. This is how it should be.
So there is another thing which happens which is called spam classification. If you identify that there is a pattern among the people who are writing reviews and probably they can be fake, you can really build an algorithm to separate those out. So those things are also there.
I would also like to add, if a company itself is paying to get fake reviews and then the company is again getting the data reviewed, why will it pay twice money to get the data and again to get the data reviewed? So that is illogical.
So I think that also connects with the part that even today surveys are used, people-to-people surveys, just because of these reasons that your online reviews and your real reviews cannot be very different. If they are, then there is a problem. But however, if your marketing initiative makes people write fake reviews, you know what sources are where you are getting that fake data from, and you would not use the same data to evaluate your own business. But there are advanced concepts, like I told one of them, spam classification, which you can use even to identify these kinds of reviews which are typically called fake. I think that's it. Thanks for showing so much interest.
Thank you, Abhi, for such a enlightening us about the data survey. While listening to you, I just got an idea. We have the feedback forms. I can send it to you by courier, and then you can evaluate us for it. Our feedback forms, okay? Our next speaker is Mr. Pulkit Agarwal. He is an ardent follower of his passions. Pulkit is involved in something which many of us may have just witnessed as passing dream. He is a volunteer at MAD, Make a Difference. MAD is an NGO which provides a space for young people to step in, lead and make a difference in their own communities. Friends, please welcome Pulkit Agarwal to share his views of joy of volunteering. Welcome.